All right, guys, we're going to pick up part 2 of the final exam review video here with number 39, looking at the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. You guys know the First Amendment. That one's pretty easy. Freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. Most of you, I think, you know the Second Amendment. Hopefully you know the Second Amendment as well, the right to bear arms. Number 3, we talked about a little bit earlier with the first video, is no quartering of soldiers, like forcing people to keep soldiers in their homes against their will during a peacetime. Number 4, we talked about a lot, freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures. Remember we watched the quick little video about the girl at school where the administrators forced her to undergo a strip search because they thought she had ibuprofen on her. And she alleged that that was a violation of her Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. Number 5, the Fifth Amendment is the right to due process of law, which includes a couple of different things. We talked about freedom from self-incrimination. I plead the Fifth Amendment, saying I'm not going to say anything that's going to make myself sound guilty. Double jeopardy's in there. Basically gives you the right to a trial. Which is like if you're accused of a crime, you have due process before they just throw you away in jail forever. Number 6 also deals with trials. This is more specific to what a fair trial actually means. So the Sixth Amendment gives you the right to a speedy and public trial. Also gives you the right to have a lawyer present to defend you. Number 7 gives you the choice to have a trial by jury if it's a civil case. Remember, civil cases are cases where there's no crime that's been committed, where it's typically a lawsuit, and if there's more than $20 at question, then you have the right to have a trial by jury. And let's be real, almost all civil cases are going to be worth more than $20. The Eighth Amendment is it protects you against excessive bail and what we call cruel and unusual punishment. The Ninth Amendment says that all of these amendments listed in the Constitution are not the only amendments, or not the only protections that Americans have. There's other rights that they have. And then the 10th Amendment is the amendment that provides for reserved powers to the states. Says any power not listed in the Constitution is reserved to the states. I'm going to look at a couple other ones here real quick. The Civil War amendments or the Reconstruction amendments start with the 13th, and that's the amendment that freed the slaves after the Civil War. We also have the 14th Amendment, which made the former slaves, the freedmen, full citizens in the United States. The 15th Amendment gave all people the right to vote in the United States, that you cannot be denied the right to vote based on your race, color, ethnicity, all those things. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote, which is very important. So the 15th and 19th, we talked about this in the first video, the 15th and the 19th are what we consider suffrage amendments. They deal with voting. 15th Amendment dealing with former slaves and the right to vote, whereas the 19th Amendment deals with women having the right to vote. The 24th Amendment deals with voting rights being protected from taxation. Don't really have to worry about that one. That one's not going to be on the final exam. Number 40, we talked about suffrage a second ago. Suffrage means the right to vote. So the suffrage amendments, number 41, the big ones would be the 15th and the 19th. You'd also say, I think in the first video I said 22nd. Don't worry about that one. Just remember the 15th and 19th. If you can remember that, then you will be in very, very good shape when it comes to answering that question on the test. Also, the 17th is the election of senators by popular vote, which is direct election of senators. That also would be an amendment that deals with suffrage. Poll taxes also deals with voting. Number 42 here. These were taxes that people had to pay in order to vote. Now, if you're an African American during that time, chances are you were a sharecropper, especially in the Deep South, so you didn't really have enough extra cash to pay a poll tax to be able to vote. The wealthy white citizens could obviously pay those taxes if they were required to, and they were able to vote, which therefore meant they were able to keep control over the government. And it was actually the 24th Amendment that eliminated poll taxes. So that's where that one kind of comes in terms of being a suffrage amendment. Number 43, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Remember the movie Selma? And that was what Selma was all about. So Martin Luther King in 1964 was able to successfully get President Lyndon Johnson to sign the 1964 Civil Rights Act that outlawed discrimination in public places. And that's a great, huge first step. But it did not deal specifically with voting. They were still having a lot of voting issues in the South where African Americans were being denied the right to vote with the Jim Crow laws, literacy tests like we saw in some with Oprah. So Dr. King was pushing Lyndon Johnson to sign that, or to kind of encourage Congress to pass the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Lyndon Johnson was kind of resisting as he thought he kind of put his neck out on the line for the Civil Rights Amendment. So Dr. King kind of put the pressure on Lyndon Johnson decided to have the march on Selma, or the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge there from Selma to Montgomery. We saw what happened in the movie, and all that violence that was captured on television kind of put the pressure on the U.S. government and President Johnson to pass a Voting Rights Act that basically made it illegal to use any kind of literacy test, Jim Crow laws to restrict the rights of any Americans to vote. Let's move on to number 44 here. We talked about this stuff recently with the legislative branch. I had a quiz last week on this. The purpose of the legislative branch, very simply, is to make the laws. Number 45, there are 2 senators that represent each state, no matter how big or small your state is. Number 46, it's the state's population. That's what the number of representatives they have in the U.S. House is based on. It's how many people live in your state. The more people you have, the more representatives you get for your state. It just makes sense. Number 47, to be a U.S. senator, you have to be at least 30 years old. To be a member of the House, you only have to be 25. Number 48, according to Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, all federal impeachment proceedings must start in the House of Representatives. They're the ones who actually impeach the president or any official. And remember, guys, impeachment does not mean you're officially removed. It just means you're being charged with a crime while you were in office. And once you've been charged with a crime, the next step is for your trial to determine if you're innocent or guilty of those charges, and that is to be conducted by the Senate. So the House and the Senate both have a role. Now, if the Senate votes and they get a 2/3 majority vote after your trial that say that you did commit the crime, then you will be removed from office. And we have not had any president that's gotten that far. Andrew Johnson, right after the Civil War, got very close. He was 1 vote away from the Senate, but he was not removed from office. Number 49, Bill Clinton also went through the impeachment process, but was not removed from office because the Senate, when they voted, did not get a 2/3 majority vote to convict him. Number 50, the House of Representatives, the most powerful position is the Speaker of the House. Speaking of the Speaker, number 51, if the Speaker of the House wanted to make sure that all the members of his political party, right now, Paul Ryan is a Republican and he is the Speaker of the House. The Republicans are in the majority in the House of Representatives. If he wanted to make sure that all the Republicans in the House are voting with the Republican ticket, he would ask the whip, the majority whip, to keep the party members in line. And what that basically means is to make sure all the Republicans are voting for what the Republican Party wants them to vote for, and they're not voting across the aisle with the Democrats. Number 52, it's the President pro tempore being Latin for temporary, so it's the temporary president when the vice president is not in the Senate. Number 53, after a bill has received a 3/5 vote in both houses of Congress, it is then sent to the president, where he'll either sign it, veto it, or he could potentially use a pocket veto. Number 54, now there are times where the House and Senate, like we talked about with this tax reform bill, they passed 2 different versions of the same bill. Both the House and the Senate have passed a version of a tax reform bill within the past couple of weeks. And while their 2 versions are similar in a lot of ways, there are some minor differences between the 2. And for the bill to go to the president's desk for him to sign or veto it, the House and Senate have to agree to pass the exact same version of a bill. So if they have different versions of the same bill, in order for them to come to an agreement, the bill is sent to what we call a conference committee, where members of both the House and the Senate meet together to try to work out a compromise bill they both can agree on to send to the president. Number 55, why are committees important in Congress? So they give us a chance to hold hearings on a bill and determine whether or not it is really a good bill that we want to go forward with. You can have experts come and testify and kind of have it open there for people to kind of figure out what this bill is all about. Number 56, what is a permanent committee is what we call a standing committee. It's permanently standing there. It never goes anywhere. They have their permanent standing committees in the House and permanent standing committees in the Senate. Number 57, the answer is it's unlimited. There is no limit on how many consecutive terms a member of the House and Senate can serve. Like the president can only serve 2 consecutive terms. If you're in the House or Senate, you can serve as many consecutive terms as you want, as long as the people in your district keep electing you. Number 58, we'll run through this real quick, the steps of the legislative process. So I guess you could say step number 1 is the bill is introduced. In one of the houses of Congress, it does not matter which house of Congress it's introduced in, unless it's a money bill, then it has to start in the House. Once the bill is introduced, step 2 is that it is sent to a committee. Once the bill is sent to the committee, they will refer it to a subcommittee. That's even more specific than the general committee. The subcommittee will then mark up the bill, which means they'll add amendments to it, debate it, and they will report the bill back to the larger committee. The committee will then do the same thing. The large committee will have they'll mark it up, debate it, and they will vote on it. If they vote in favor of the bill, it goes back to the first chamber, whichever one it started in, the House or the Senate, where they'll get a chance to add amendments also and take a vote on it. If it passes the first chamber, the next step would be it goes to the second chamber, where it repeats the exact same process it did in the first chamber. And then if both houses of Congress pass the bill, it goes to the president, and the president has a chance to sign it, veto it, or use a pocket veto. If he vetoes the bill, there's still a chance for it to become a law. It'll go back to Congress. Remember I told you, like, the bill is on life support. So it's like it's on a breathing machine. It's probably going to die if the president vetoes it, but there's still a minor chance that it could survive, and that minor chance involves both houses of Congress taking another vote, and they have to get a 2/3 majority vote in both houses to override the presidential veto. Number 59, with elections, what is a delegate? A delegate is someone who goes to a party's national convention and casts their state's vote for a particular candidate that they want to be their party's candidate for the president in the general election. Number 60, they call that person a nominee if you're chosen as your party's candidate in the general election. So like Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump was the Republican nominee for president, Hillary Clinton was the Democratic nominee for president. Number 61 is the electoral vote. Number 62, the number of electoral votes in each state is based on the state's number of representatives in the House plus their 2 senators. Okay, that's why Georgia, we have 16, because we have 14 members of the House plus 2 senators. Number 63, what is the purpose of campaign finance laws? It's to limit corruption. Think about it. If you have a lot of money, let's say you're Bill Gates and you really like Hillary Clinton last election, well, you could have donated $1 billion to her. And the idea is, well, if you do that to help her get elected, then you're going to expect something in return. So if you help her get elected, when you call her while she's president, now obviously she didn't win, but if she would have won, you call her up and you expect her to do what you asked her to do, and that can lead to some very shady situations and some corruption. So it's designed to limit that corruption. Number 64, the role of a free press in a democracy is to serve as a watchdog over the government to make sure they're not doing things that are illegal and violating the rights of Americans. Talking about Richard Nixon and Watergate, how the press were the ones that really kind of untangled the whole Watergate scandal and saw that he was lying to the American people. Number 65, I'm talking about campaigns. An endorsement is where a very popular public figure comes out and supports a candidate openly in public. We're talking about a PAC and a super PAC. A PAC and a super PAC, they're both private organizations that raise money to support a political candidate. And they accept donations from people who support that candidate. So Donald Trump had PACs and super PACs, and so did Hillary Clinton. The main difference between a PAC and a super PAC is that a super PAC, you can donate an unlimited amount of money to them. There's no limit on that whatsoever because of that Citizens United versus the FEC case that opened that up and created super PACs. In a PAC, you can donate more money than you can to just a regular old candidate, but there is a limit to how much you can donate. Super PAC, there is no limit. Number 67, the President of the United States in the yearly State of the Union, what he does is he updates Congress and the American public on the status of the government each and every year. Number 68, the President can serve 2 terms of office, but each term is for 4 years. So 2 terms of office. You can be elected 2 times, but each term is only 4 years. Number 70, it's the line of succession. So if the president dies, there's a line of succession. There's a list of people that would then become president. It would be the vice president, speaker of the House, president pro tempore, and on down the list. To be president, there's a couple formal qualifications. You have to be at least 35 years old. You have to be born in the United States, and you have to be someone who's lived in the United States for a significant amount of time. 72, all the agencies and departments that make up the federal government are known as the bureaucracy. The executive branch is the largest branch, and there's a giant bureaucracy there. The president's cabinet is his closest group of advisors. They are the heads of the major departments of the executive branch, like the Department of Defense and Justice Department, so on and so forth. Number 74, as the head of the U.S. military, that's the president's role as commander-in-chief. 75, the president's role that involves him making decisions on how to deal with other nations. That's him being the foreign policy chief. Or the chief diplomat. Either one's the same thing. Diplomacy is how you deal with foreign countries, so it could be chief diplomat or foreign policy chief. And number 76, which federal department is charged with protecting the security of the United States? And that would be Department of Homeland Security, which is one of the newer departments that was added after 9/11. All right, guys, there you have it. Good luck on the final exam.